Um, I think that fans are eager to see more of Natasha Romanoff. She is really the only one of the original Avengers who hasn't had her own standalone movie. I mean, we got Thor, we got Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, and so it's time for Natasha's story to be told. And I think that fans of these movies really want to hear more about her past, which has been shrouded in a lot of mystery, the Red Room and what she's been through as a human being. And I think fans are eager to see that. How do I feel about joining the MCU? I don't know how one could answer that question except awesome. It's really great. I mean, I love these movies, and I think that Marvel and the MCU do them better than anybody. The production of the movies themselves, the scripts, the characters are all so rich and at the highest level. And then on top of that, you have this world of brothers and sisters, who are making the rest of the mythology, and that mythology is crossing over in weird, wonderful ways. So I don't know how I could possibly answer that question without simply saying, well, I seem to have said a lot more, but simply saying I feel awesome about it. The Alexei Shostakov plays a very unique, particular role in Natasha's life. You'll see a lot about Natasha, and this guy he really holds a special place in her life, in her heart, in what she's been through. And the film gets to explore her as a younger woman, and then after the events of Civil War and when she's become an Avenger. And it explores, the choices that this guy's made in his life. And they have to come together in this movie, and they have to revisit a lot of this rich past that they've had. So when we find Alexei in this movie, well, after this little prelude, when we find him for the bulk of the movie, he is in prison. He's made a lot of mistakes in his life. He's really a failure, both physically, morally, and emotionally. He was a very capable dude who's let himself go in many different ways. And he's full of remorse and guilt, also desperation. But he still does have this fire of life in him that is reignited when, this opportunity begins for him when we meet him in the movie. And throughout the movie, he will go on this incredible journey, this incredible arc of really finding out what he's made of and who he's been all along. I really adore Cate Shortland, the director of this movie. She, is helming a huge blockbuster superhero movie, but she did it with such a delicate, sensitive, creative touch. She is primarily more of an independent director, and she tells very human stories. Some of her stories have been coming of age stories of young women. I think she was really the perfect director for this project because she really created a vibe on set that felt comfortable and collaborative and safe to take risks, and really put the women characters first, which I feel like this story needed. But also, was in love with a character like Alexei, and didn't shortchange him in any way for some sort of agenda. She's a very sensitive artist, and I think the Marvel universe does this very well, where they put really creative directors in these big budget movies, but it's not the norm. To have someone so wanting to take risks and willing to take risks And to put them in charge of a big blockbuster movie, I think is a rare thing for a studio to do, but I'm very grateful that they did. So the stunts and the action is huge in this movie, unlike anything I've ever done. And I think probably unlike anything I've ever seen. It's extremely difficult to do. I do not do most of my own action, thank God. I do a minority of that, but just a sliver of it. But even that sliver required tremendous training. When I got there, I was very out of shape, and the character was very out of shape, and that was a good thing for the character. Before the stunts, it was not a great thing. I started boxing and training with these stunt guys for hours and hours a day. I continued boxing, and working a little bit on this discipline, Russian Sambo, which is Red Guardian's discipline. And you just work really hard. I mean, the great thing about my particular training was that I don't have to get into superhero shape with this character. He is a big guy, and he's meant to be a big guy. So it wasn't really about eating a certain diet and having abs or whatever. It was more just about being able to do this very difficult physical stuff. And that takes a lot of training just for safety, just so you don't kill yourself, because you're doing hours and hours of this really complicated choreography, and you're doing it with guys that are a lot faster and stronger than you are. So you try to get sort of in the best strength, best flexibility and strength of your life so you can keep up. In general, with a movie like this, I think the most important thing that you take away is that you have a great time for a couple hours. It's in its essence, these movies are about fantasy and about a mythology. And so what you're really meant to do is dissolve and let all the cares of your life and all the concerns sort of melt away and just be taken on an emotional roller coaster that takes you through humor and pathos, and also like tense action, and ultimately good versus evil, which are these concepts that we, our narratives love to prop up against each other. And it makes us feel good when good defeats evil. It's just a really warm, nice feeling. So ultimately, the biggest thing I want you to take from this is a big smile off your face when you go home and have to deal with your life again, like we all do. But if you take something else, I also think that you could take from it perhaps more questioning of what family really is, what it means, what your particular role in family means, and what the consequences for good and poor choices with family can mean for your life. Because I think the film explores a lot of what it means to be a sister or a father or a mother or a daughter, and what the consequences are for good choices amidst that and bad choices.
I think fans have wanted a deeper dive into Natasha Romanoff's past, because she's quite like a mysterious character. It's almost like, in some ways, she's more vulnerable than the other Avengers because she's just a human, an advanced human. But in some ways, she keeps her cards so close to her chest that she's very mysterious. And so I think that elicits a lot of interest. How do I feel about joining the MCU? I mean, excited, first word comes to my head. It's a bit daunting, honestly. It's a bit intimidating, but at the same time, it's thrilling because the fans are so connected to the world. They're so well versed in the universe. So I'm just glad to be playing a part in it. So I play character Rick Mason, and he kind of helps Natasha, kind of like a fixer, like anything she needs. She needs a plane or a passport, kind of guy who could hook her up. But there is a kind of chemistry between them which kind of belies a past. And it's a bit mysterious about what their past connection is. He's obviously got a soft spot for her. Who wouldn't? Well, Cate Shortland, our esteemed director, has done a lot of kind of these indie movies which kind of have this tension and pace, but are still kind of quite intimate and nuanced in terms of character relations. And she brings all that kind of to this Marvel universe, this kind of author directorship to this big franchise. And it's just such a wonderful blend. I think it's really special what she's created. I hope audiences watch this and just have a great time. I mean, obviously, it's a film about family, the family you have, the family you find. It's about forgiveness. It's about sisterhood. But it's also just a riot. There's some great humor in it. And so I can't wait for people to have this experience of coming out, watching a movie again in the cinema, watching it at home, getting some more Marvel again.
Natasha is a fascinating character, and I think fans wanted to know more about her. They wanted to know who she was kind of before she was an Avenger, but also she's so secretive often and doesn't trust people. And I think they want to know where that comes from. Excited to join the MCU. I'm incredibly excited about joining the MCU and working with these characters, and also just with the Marvel universe, you know, and the people that make the movies. It's been a great journey. We learn in Black Widow that Natasha was part of a spy family, and that she was in Russia and then she was brought to America to play a role. And so that the character has always had to pretend. And in Black Widow, we sort of strip that away and we say, okay, who is she when she's not pretending and she's vulnerable and raw? And yeah, we get to see that within a family dynamic. Natasha and Yelena come back together in the movie, and they haven't seen each other since they were children. And I suppose there's a lot of emotion and pain, and they're scared to love each other because in the past they've been ripped apart. And so both of them are frightened and they don't trust. And so the journey of the film is really that relationship and those young women joining forces and becoming this really powerful team. Alexei and Melina are damaged. They're both corrupt people. They've both done terrible things. And they're also both really vulnerable people that want to be loved. So we find them as people that have been part of a system that they're not proud of, and that they have to answer to their daughters about why they were involved in this really corrupt system. And I think a lot of people would identify with that when you ask your parents, but why did you hate gay people? Or why were you part of apartheid? Or why were you part of a segregated America or Australia? So I think they're really questions that a lot of families ask. I think from the really beginning, the inception of the film, we wanted it to be about intimacy and relationship, and that had to be as powerful as the action sequences. So right from the beginning, the film has been about what is intimate and also what is epic. And then we sort of were sewing those two together, but always with Natasha at the center of it. People that have seen Endgame know how her character sacrificed herself. And what I wanted to do was to say that she's kind of eternal. So I used fireflies at the very beginning of the film, and she sees them as a child. And then I use them right at the end of the film. And it's this idea that we're all part of the ether, that even if we're not here, we kind of join the universe. And that was really important to me with her. I have a 12-year-old daughter, Ruby Awami. She's African Australian, and I wanted the film to talk to her personally, as well as to all the other young women out in the world, and to say, you girls kick ass, you're strong, you're funny, you're smart, and you can do so much more than the world is telling you what you can do. And I hope that, girls in far flung countries across the world and towns watch it and think they've got a little bit of Black Widow in them as well.
I think fans have wanted a deeper dive into Natasha Romanoff's past, because she's such a mysterious, interesting character. And I think everyone wants to know her kind of origin story and what happened before she was an Avenger. I feel very flattered and honored to be part of the MCU family. It kind of does feel a little like family. Well, my character, Melina, was trained as a Black Widow in the Red Room. So I'm an older generation Black Widow, which Scarlett's character was too. So we come from the same school, from the same country. We've been through the same trauma. We've had the same training. Well, the movie begins 20 years ago, but in the present day of the movie, we find Melina in Russia, living on her own, quite happily, with a lot of very hairy pigs. And she is a scientist, and she's doing her work, living alone, drinking vodka, pretty content, I think. But yeah, there's something missing. There's a lot missing. And the people who are missing show up. I think in Cate Shortland's independent movies, she portrayed women who were very, not trying to be nice or to people please or be girly. They're very powerful, complex, quite radical, fierce women. So she was very perfect for a character like Scarlett's Black Widow. She, surprisingly, because I don't think she'd done a ton of action before, is a brilliant action director, which is just great. Some of the best action scenes I've ever seen between very powerful women fighting each other. But she's also really, she's got a kind of magic. She can create a magical atmosphere where chemistry flies between people, and she can direct real drama, and she's also got an incredible sense of humor. So she's kind of got it all, Cate Shortland. She's a bit of a genius. So Marvel have wonderful stuntmen and women that work again and again throughout all their different movies, and they know all the signature moves, like the Black Widow's signature moves, and they're kind of great at teaching a newbie like me, who's never been a Black Widow, how to do it. A bit like having a dance choreograph that you do, but it's a kick-ass kind of fight scene. So it was a lot of fun to do. I hope audiences are excited and thrilled by the action and cry at the drama and the very moving, emotional family stuff, and also laugh, because I found it extreme. I laughed and cried.